Hello, movie lovers. Welcome home. My name is Amy Henserling, and you are listening to Watch This List Unplugged. We are at the start of a brand new series that is going to be focusing on comfort movies. Every time I start a new series, which at this point this is my third, Frank Ritz, my BFF, is always my guinea pig for how the series is going to go. But when I told Frank Ritz, my dear friend, that I was no longer going to be doing Hidden Gems, he was very, shall we say, perturbed and insulted that I didn't bring him back for a second Hidden Gems episode.
Amy, I literally made you promise me when we started. I said, I get a second episode, right? Because it was so hard choosing the movies. I had so many.
Right. But Frank has an endless supply of movies that he wants to do and an endless rewatch list. So, what we have done, or what I have allowed to occur, more like, is that Frank and I are doing a combo episode here, a transition episode of the tail end of Hidden Gems, even though I finished it with Joel already. So Frank over here has 2 Hidden Gems that I watched. And then I will introduce the comfort movie series with his 2 comfort films. Now, normally comfort films are going to be 3 at a time, but I didn't want to do 5 movies this week.
Like when I come back for the next comfort episode, I'll get to do 3 of them.
3. Yes. And Frank, really what the solution to this problem is that you should have your own dang podcast, then have me on your podcast.
You're right. But
and then you can talk every time.
That's not what this is right now, though.
Yeah, well.
I don't have that right now.
And also, if you did, they'd be 3 hours long, and it would just be out of control, I feel.
Yes.
Especially if you had co-hosts who just let you be you.
Well, you do let me be me mostly, other than cutting me off. But
within boundaries.
Yeah. No, you're right. It'd be a lot more chaotic. But that's the fun. And you're right. It would minimum 3 hours for sure.
Yes. Didn't you have one at some point that was like focused on, what was it, Tarantino or?
We did Scorsese.
Yeah, and they were very, very long. I will never, ever say it like that.
That's fine.
Scorsese, really? Is that true?
Yes. We made it a whole point because yes, exactly. None of us knew how to say it properly, and then after a couple episodes and keep looking it up and making sure, I now can't not hear it. Yet Sessy. So
I can't believe you have done this to me in the first 3 minutes. Scorsese is how I've been saying it since the beginning of time.
Everyone, me too. But
Scorsese. You'd have to say it you'd have to say it with Italia.
I want to say we affirmed it. It was like a Charlie Rose interview or something where he's like, now is it Scorsese? And he's like, it's Sessy. You know?
Sessy. I mean, it's not a big deal, but like everyone gets it wrong all the time.
Yeah.
I imagine like a Valley Girl response to this for some reason.
From Marty?
Yeah. Like it's just, yeah. The poor guy. I mean, I feel bad, but the long E does sound more
filmmaker-y.
Yeah, cinematic.
Italian. Scorsese.
I just finished Giallo, and so I am kind of in withdrawal, actually, from
what, Italians?
Italian, yeah. Yeah, because most of them were in Italian. I think honestly, the Argentos were the ones that were mainly dubbed in English. And that's because they're masterpieces and that can happen. But a lot of them are very enhanced by the authenticity of the language just enhances the whole experience. You're not really a that kind of person, are you? You don't have a lot of experience with that.
Giallo. A lot of Giallo?
Never
never as much as I think I do. I've definitely seen a handful or more, and I think technically one of our films today does count as a giallo.
Oh, it
But
definitely does.
so I'm familiar enough, but it's like most things where it's like, yeah, I got a base knowledge. I'm no expert in almost anything,
I
actually.
am an expert now because I watched
Yeah,
30 in 31 days.
yeah.
So any questions anybody has, it's fresh.
I definitely trust your opinion more than mine. Can you share it real fast? I know. I mean, we're already here.
Go
Like, what
ahead,
was your
Frank.
favorite of the month? What's the crown gialli?
Oh, well, the best one empirically and personally is Deep Red,
Oh wow. Okay.
which is Dario,
Hmm.
genius master Dario
Do
Gento.
you know
And
which
then,
version you watched?
of course, I do. The English cut, 104 minutes.
Is that so? That's the shorter one.
That is the shorter one.
Okay, that's the only one
AJ
I've seen.
AJ sent me the Italian cut, which I believe is
Like
I
two
can't remember the
hours.
exact amount that's longer, but it's a little bit longer and it doesn't have the original voice there that the English cut does in
Oh,
British.
I've
So I
heard that the longer one is better, but I've only seen the
have
shorter
you.
one. Yeah,
Okay. Well, I'll have to be the judge of that. I do love the Goblin soundtrack though. I've been listening to it while I drive
I
and do
went to
normal tasks.
see it. The only time I've seen it was Goblin was performing the score live, which I
Oh
also
my
yeah, it was
gosh.
very cool. And I also saw Suspiria that way, which was the life changing Suspiria
Oh.
viewing.
Oh my
It's
gosh, I can't imagine.
it's
That
very
would be so
strange
rad.
people like acting like it's a concert more than a movie though, like people just getting up and like walking around and talking, and it's like what the
This
hell
is a
is going
film.
on here?
Sit down.
Uh-huh.
That's like somebody described to me going to the Metrograph and seeing Possession
Ooh.
and that people were like laughing hysterically at the subway scene and then
Oh,
laughing. Yeah, and I was like that would really anger
I
me.
was gonna say some of that movie is hilarious, but not the subway scene.
No, but
That's not
not
funny.
I would never laugh at that film. That film is I don't know.
I don't know. I
As
feel like there's
campy as it
parts of
is,
Sam Neill in the beginning being a little lunatic is like kind of funny.
I know, but it's not funny because
I
that's how these situations feel, Frank,
I
okay?
know. I love Possession.
This
I'm
movie is so important to me. I probably shouldn't talk about it. But yes, so actually full circling around, one of your hidden gems is Giallo.
Giallo.
It's an homage. I know it's homage, but homage is what I like to say
Isn't it
to the
homage?
genre. Yeah.
Okay.
Rob and I have had this debate, like the bird with the crystal. It's supposed to be the bird with the crystal plumage, I guess, and I say
Plumage.
and or plumage, and I say plumage.
Okay. All right, Amy. All right. Now I understand.
Yeah.
That's
So
absurd.
I have a little bit of a preoccupation with Aj.
Are we starting there? Or are we starting with a different one?
No, okay. So the first hidden gem is not that
Okay.
one.
Okay.
That will be the second. The first one is called In the Family from 2011, directed by Patrick. What do you want to call him?
I think
Wang.
it's Wang. Yeah.
Okay, we'll say Patrick Wang, who also stars in the film
Mm-hmm.
and wrote it.
Mm-hmm. And
So this feels very
presumably
much,
produced it and whatever else.
yeah. It feels very much like a passion project. Would you agree?
100%. Definitely has a like it's clearly an indie film. It's like
Mhm.
and not a Hollywood slick what we call indie films, like a genuine one. Like, oh yeah, you guys definitely were making this in like friends' homes probably, and like probably knew people who had access to these locations. Like, I
Right.
don't know, feels very labor of love, feels very genuine, like we're going in the backyard to make a movie. But like still of a higher quality than what that probably initially brings to mind.
Right. It's definitely still quite polished and it feels like a real movie. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
not like you're watching it the whole time thinking like, "Oh, this is like a student film or something."
Right.
It does actually it's just certain aspects of it that feel that way.
Sure, like
So,
it doesn't have the
yeah.
nicest camera and they clearly don't have lighting trucks available. Like a
Mm.
big deal though. I feel like the movie definitely focuses on like what's ultimately important, and that's its screenplay and its actors. And then, gets pretty interesting with what it can do with its limited I don't know, technological scope, I suppose. Like,
And this is one that you said, I read this afterwards, his review, but that Ebert really championed it when
mhm.
it came out. He gave it 4 stars. He loved it. So this is one that he, I think, tried to get greater exposure for, that really wasn't that well seen, hence the hidden gem
Right. I
part.
don't think it ever got real theatrical distribution. I think it like
Mm,
would have a couple weekends. I mean, I guess I should have researched this more. I definitely looked it all up the first time I watched it because it blew me so away. I was like, I want to know everything. And it's kind of hard to find a lot of information about it, which is sad. Like, there isn't
right.
tons and tons of stuff. But I know that's one of the things that Ebert saw it and loved it and literally was like, like, I feel like it's in the review where he's like, let's try to get this scene. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just like it couldn't ever get traction. The biggest thing is its daunting runtime. It's 170 minutes. Like, so that's a big ask of anybody in a casual movie going scenario. And then you add on that there's nobody famous, there's no big budget, there's no easy hook to the movie. Like, we haven't talked about what it's about, but like, it's either
It's a
give
very
away.
serious subject.
Right. Yes, it's not a casual thing to just throw on, but then it's also, if you say too much, you're going to start making assumptions about what it probably is like, and then if you don't say enough, it's like, well, 3 hours, give me a freaking break. Like, I don't know. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not going to hold it against anybody that this isn't a more well-known movie, but I
Right.
really think it deserves to be. It's kind of shocking.
So when did you first stumble upon this movie? How did you hear about it? Because I know you said that there was a story, but
It's
with
not an
there's always a
interesting
story.
story. No, it's not an interesting story at all. You had
Okay.
texted me asking how I found out, and I said, actually, I don't
Yeah.
remember, but I do. I still haven't watched them, but he has his latest films came out in 2018, and it's a two-part movie. It's a Bread Factory Part 1 and a Bread Factory Part 2. And I feel
Okay.
like that was like I started really using Letterboxd in like 2017. So like I kind of remember seeing it pop up from people and it being like a quiet indie, like, this is a cool thing, it's a two-part movie, like, blah blah blah. So I think that is how it even got on the radar. How I ended up, because then being like, what else did he make? Oh, this 3 hour movie, a few people I follow give it really strong ratings. Cool, I'm
Mm.
sure I threw it in the watch list. Don't know what cannot for the life of me remember what compelled me to watch it though. Like, don't remember how it ended up, yeah, actually being selected by me to endure, but something definitely seemed appealing about it.
Did you watch
So,
it alone the first time?
yep, just on a whim. I
Okay.
feel like it was like middle of the day.
Of course.
Uh,
That's
yeah,
what I always picture you watching movies, actually, is
in
middle of the day.
the middle of the day.
Oddly. Yeah.
It's
Because most of the time that I've watched movies that you have given me, it's been the middle of the day. Like, if anytime we same time, it's always middle.
that's true. I guess
Yeah.
I guess I prefer middle of the day or late at night. I don't know. The
Yeah.
evenings when
Like,
you got to get stuff done,
yeah.
and the
I f-
morning.
yeah.
So,
It's a nice afternoon movie, I feel like. Even though, like, Frank and I were both sobbing in tandem, sometimes at I mean, usually at the same time, but this is definitely a heavy film, and it's uh very endearing at the same time.
mhm.
So go ahead and set it up in whatever way that you want
I
to,
know it's
Frank.
so tough. Okay,
I
it's
know. I'm
it's
not even going to attempt to do that because I know you're particular.
It takes place in 2008, just a random thing that I strongly noticed this time. Oops, sorry.
Oh, that's
In
right.
in
Definitely.
Tennessee, and it's about a couple played by Patrick Wang himself and another actor who have a son together whose name's Chip, so they're a gay couple, and the other guy in the family, oh god, wait, what's his name? Cody. Cody had a previous marriage and the wife died when Chip was a baby. And then
Yeah.
Joey, who's Patrick Wayne's character, came into the picture, and they've been in a relationship since Cody's been a child. So it's always been his two dads.
A
His
baby, really, wasn't
yeah,
he? I mean,
yeah, he
yeah,
was still like maybe one by the time they were together.
right, right.
Um, and he's 6 now, I want to say, Chip. So it's about their like life, and they have a very uh endearing, is I like that you use that word,
Yeah.
family dynamic. Like they're
Mhm.
very, you get a lot with a little here. Um and then yeah, I guess you got to say it. Joey gets into an accident and
No,
dies.
Cody.
Oh fuck. Yeah. Cody, sorry.
It's okay.
Not
Cody.
Yeah, Cody. His biological father, Cody, gets in an accident and dies. And then the movie is about what happens after that, because
Mhm.
Joey is not Chip's actual father.
Right.
So naturally, nothing is easy in this world. And that's all I'm going to say. I think getting too farther down, don't read the letterbox plot description. I may have even said too much. It's not like it's a spoiler or anything. It's literally what the movie's about. There's just a nice sense of pace and discovery that the movie likes to take you along on. And I think if you're anticipating too much plot, it could probably ruin the journey. Because it really is a film not unlike the last time I was on Hidden Gems when we talked about Hamaguchi's Happy Hour. They definitely are
Mhm.
similar in the sense of like they really want to take time to let you bask in the world, and scenes will play out. It's not a lot of scenes, but it's every scene is longer than the average movie version of those scenes. So yeah.
This movie is also very reminiscent of A Separation, in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
which that's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Same.
And that one is it's just as sort of
Frustrating.
anxiety inducing in an unlike a very logistical manner,
Mm-hmm.
where you're like angry at paperwork
Mm-hmm.
or like angry at details of life,
And
and so you can relate very strongly
mm-hmm.
because it's on that level, that human level.
And both definitely take their time to get going. I remember the first half hour of A
Yeah.
Separation being like, why is
What's
everybody
going on?
obsessed with this movie? Like,
I know.
okay. And
That's what
then
my brother said. He was
once
like,
it
"What is?" Yeah.
once it starts, it's like the most gripping movie ever made. And
Oh my gosh, it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
It's
So
extraordinary in that sense. And like we were like I had seen it already and I showed it to my brother and he was like, "What the heck is this movie about?" Like you said. And then he was yelling at the TV. Like just total frustration. So that it's like that's what happens on In the Family. It brings out your sense of rage on behalf of like how you'd feel about your best friend going through a crisis. That's
mm-hmm,
what it taps into.
mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of things I've read on like Letterboxd or other people's reviews that like reduce it down to being things that like it kind of is, like calling it a message movie or saying it's like too melodramatic or whatever you want to say. Like it definitely lends itself to those things, but that like undercuts its genuine like sincerity towards a real life connection to these things. Like it's not maudlin for maudlin's sake. It's not saccharine for saccharin's sake. It reminds me a lot of It's a Wonderful Life, actually, where I'm like,
Mhm.
you're totally being emotionally manipulative, but you're doing it in this like really high class way that I don't care, because you are just telling like a good story with good characters that is interesting. And yeah, I don't want to say
W-
it. Everything else
Well,
I want to keep saying, I got to stop, because again, it's a movie that's very much about discovery.
also though, something that you so Frank and I watched this at the same time and we were texting and one thing that Frank said that's really stood out to me that I wanted to mention was there's a scene where Joey is talking to his son and his son wants to do something and he wants him to do something else and instead of just saying go do it, he has this whole exchange with the child of like, well, maybe if you think about it this way, and like
He
it is
says,
the
I'm
most
sorry I didn't
caring.
even ask you what you wanted to do.
Right. And Frank was like, it just always moves you when people speak to children in that sort of very loving, deliberately, man, it's like stronger than compassion. I
Hmm.
don't even know how to describe what this is exactly.
Patience is a big part of it, that they're completely patient and like listening and treating him as another human being, but like with
Right.
extra care because they are still a child. Like I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, it's I don't know I don't know a better word for it either.
Yeah, there's a way to do that where and it's not only touching in a sort of parent child dynamic, but
Mm-hmm.
just as a person. I Cuz Frank and I were like, who talks like this in general, not just to a child, but like I actually think about this with Magic Mike XXL actually. Like the way that they speak to women
Mm-hmm.
feels very different
Mm-hmm.
than how men actually speak to women
Yeah,
most of the time.
Joey is like the most patient character in movie history, and he's still not even
Mm,
like perfect. Like he has moments of not being a perfect human being, I suppose, but like you still get why he's acting the way he does 100% of the time, and still comes across as the most patient human being in planet
like a saint.
history. But then you
Yeah.
find out more about him, and it all doesn't feel treacly, and it doesn't feel soapy, and it doesn't feel unwarranted. Everything in the movie feels like it was deeply thought through and done with a purpose, which you can't say about most films in general, but especially independent films where you might not have the time to luxuriate in the way you'd like to in like executing things. This really feels like a well rehearsed, well thought through, like probably had 30 drafts of a script type movie. It
Right.
definitely nothing's easy, and nothing's I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's yeah. And we haven't even the filmmaking's pretty staggering, I think. They
All
are
right,
always
Frank, give me in a couple of minutes. Give me your summation of your technical the things that you love about the way that it's filmed. And then we're going to move on to the giallo.
it's just that it is willing to be patient. So a lot of scenes will play out in like long single shot takes, but like there's always a like in it almost in a way that I suppose you could be pulled out of it, but there's like an awareness of framing that is always, I think, pretty striking. Like when it uses center frame things, it's always with a poignant purpose of registering who's looking at Joey more so
Mm,
than anything else. And then
yeah.
when things feel off center, it's because there's a whole world we're trying to encompass. Like there's just interesting layers of thought behind why it's chosen that way. And then some scenes get a little more like handheld, your standard Sundance indie free flowing, but it feels like there's scenes and reasons why each one is happening when there's a little more spice in the content of the scene, like people arguing or being romantic or whatever it is. The camera's a little more alive and flowing. But when it's more about digesting information or observing behavior, it's a lot more static and thought through. Not too unlike something that someone like Hamaguchi, as I already said, but also even like Ozu do agree, though he was a lot more central framing, so never mind.
Yeah, these are like it's like people are off to the side
Mhm,
or the camera is strangely, and you have done this in your films as well. I noticed
mhm.
that your directorial sort of eye is I can see why you would love this very much. And I can see it really, and especially Better Living.
Well,
Um
thanks.
just the way that it's that you see. This feels very kindred to you.
Well, that's probably definitely why I'm drawn to it. It definitely feels like
Mhm.
the Hamaguchi thing where the first time I was watching it, just like, wow, I wish I made this. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And I,
Frank is really just obsessed with himself, and anything that reminds him of him, he loves. Right, Frank?
yeah, probably. Just pulling a therapist real quick.
Yeah,
Come in.
yeah.
You can come in.
Back to the
Whatever.
couch. Okay, so In the Family, everybody see it. It's wonderful. It's a tearjerker. But
It is a
it's
tearjerker, but not in the way that you're
but
gonna
not in the way
assume.
right.
It does not
Yeah.
play in the way you think it's going to. I actually promise.
And we were like, this isn't like teary-eyed. This is like weeping.
Yeah,
This is like
yeah. There's about
Craig and
30
I were
minutes
like
straight where I'm just weeping
crying.
for
Yeah.
30 actual minutes. And I don't get
Yes.
how that can't be one of my favorite movies personally. Anything
Just
that
because of the emotional impact. Yeah.
yeah, cuz it's more than just like oh wow, that was good. I'm crying. It's like it's striking something on a deep level cuz I
Mm-hmm.
can't stop crying.
Oh, Frank.
I love it so much.
I know. Okay, now, so your next hidden gem, and then we're closing it out. So we're actually closing out hidden
Yes.
gems for real with this movie,
Next
this
hidden
insane
gem,
movie
basically the opposite
of In the
of
Family.
In the
This
Family.
the strange color of your body's tears,
Uh-huh.
which is perfect for Giallo
Yes,
title.
one of the great titles ever.
Uh huh.
What do
Besides
you
Strip Nude for Your Killer.
I
That's
might I mean that is pretty good. Or the what's the
Strip
one
Nude for Your Killer.
your room is a key vice and
Oh
I have the
yeah,
key.
your vice is a locked room, and only I have the key.
Okay, that's an
That was a
all-timer.
disappointing film, but it's an all-timer title. Yeah, and I would say the consensus is for that one. I do love Strip Nude for Your Killer, and I'm trying to think. Four Flies on Gray Velvet is a good title, but the movie stinks,
I
in my
don't
opinion.
love that title and I haven't seen it.
It's just kind of,
Isn't
I don't
that
know.
Argento too?
Flies on Gray Velvet. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I watched Burial
Yeah.
Ground. I was like, why did I watch a Strip Nude for Your Killer movie? Burial Ground's a fun zombie movie.
Okay, so this was directed by whom?
I believe Alain Quetet,
Pronounce it.
Alain and Bruno Fozane.
Yes, and you are particularly interested in the fact that it's a married couple.
I mean, how could you not be? I think it's
I know, but you were
undeniable.
particularly
Well, yeah, especially if you see they only have 3 feature films, and this is my favorite. I love Let the Corpses Tan a ton and a half,
Mhm.
and I think Amur is amazing. And on a rewatch, I wouldn't be surprised if I loved it as much as the other two. I honestly think they're one of my favorite, like currently working filmmakers, and I wish
like
that they
duos.
just
Yeah.
anything like
Anything.
they're up there. I'd say they're probably in my like 20 favorite directors ever because I just like I love these movies so much on a purely stylistic level, which is what they are. I mean, they are sensorial feast like actually.
Yes.
Like it
Yes.
the thing the okay, the the movie it doesn't matter how to sell this. It doesn't
I know.
matter what it's about because it doesn't really care. It's a guy comes home from a business trip, his wife has vanished, he's trying to find her. That's like a good starting point, except even that kind of sells short because it's not about this guy. Like it's kind of about a building that they all live in and it's like the inhabitants of this building and it's like how their lives all intertwine together and that's like what it's
Mm.
actually about because you see a lot of people complain and like I even feel a little bit that the movie's maybe a little too long because it's such an overload of style that it can kind of get bogged down in like why are we even doing these story beats, but it's like it's more a mosaic view of a building and the people and it's definitely all about the ideas and themes and like watching those play out in various so heavily giallo based set pieces and
Tropes.
in tropes and like letting them just be these like flash in the pan over the top maximalist stylistics. I bring all this up because I wanted to say before it's one of the few films that does give a visceral physical reaction while I'm watching it. There's a sequence in the middle that's like my favorite sequence in maybe all horror movies where like I feel so uncomfortable in my literal skin on the couch and every time I start like having to like kind of I want to look away and I get tight and it's like
Mm.
it's because it's too visceral like the violence that does happen in this movie and
And the
it's
sound.
because
It's
of the
this.
sound. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because of the sound. I mean, the
And the
sound with the
intense
imagery.
editing. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, still, it's mostly because it's just so in the forefront,
Hmm.
like, and it's sounds that are kind of associated with, well, sex, but also pain.
Hmm.
So it's just very arresting, and uh
It's
I think you compared it to Inland Empire, didn't you?
hmm.
Sort of.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's, I think, apt. That's something that I would say somebody could, if you're trying to think about, like, would you be interested in seeing this? It's kind of that way, except a lot more what
it's more straightforward
polished.
and definitely more polished visually.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's the thing.
yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm sure you could take a sequence out of this movie and show it to someone and they'd absolutely adore it in a small vacuum. It's do you want an hour and 40 minutes of this overload? Which to me,
Yeah.
absolutely give it to me all day. But
But a lot of people are like,
it's,
that's enough.
yeah.
It's just on and on and on. Yeah, that was the general complaint. Out of all the reviews I read, it was just like, okay, enough.
This is a
Like,
movie
we
that
get it.
has for sure like been in my top 50 since I saw it, and I like won't let it drop because I love it so much. And every time this is my sixth time watching it and I still
Oh,
adore it.
Frank,
But
so crazy.
why? It's amazing.
Sixth time. You're the only person I know who would watch a movie that many times and then remember it. But continue. You're
Oh,
special.
whatever. The
Go ahead.
Just that I too think it almost is a little long in the tooth, like for sure, which is the
Mm.
only reason it's not in my top 20. Like there are inevitably points where I'll check out because whatever. The highlight of the movie I think comes about halfway, which is like a problem in itself, but I still love everything that happens after. There's just yeah, it's an interesting movie. It's hard to remember, even a person who's seen it a bunch of times, like stop trying to get too into the story because it's not
The
about this
narrative.
guy in
Right.
his wife, even though it like that's just a part of it. And actually, funny enough, for the first time, six viewings in, I think I understand everything that literally happens in the story. I was like,
Hmm.
oh, I think I finally actually get what's going on in this movie, like fully. But it
I did
really,
not.
yeah, no, because
But I didn't try.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It really doesn't
Yeah.
matter because it is like, I mean, you were joking, well, kind of joking a minute ago, like, yeah, sex and death, nothing new. Like that's the Giallo MO, and we've been making movies about it forever, and the like close intertwinedness of the two. This movie is in the text about a bunch of people obsessed with those ideas crossing because it's a very okay, it's a movie heavily about BDSM too, and like every character has some fetish that they're like really into. And so these things being intertwined, it's like the movie itself has the fetish of making a movie and it's taking it to
About
the
it.
extreme, just like all these
Right.
people are trying to take it to the extreme. And I love that. It's content and form actually being married together in a fascinating way. I don't know, like, has a movie ever done more movie things than this movie, like actually, like from beginning to end, there's no normal scene. There is never just a scene of like here are the even something like 2001, that's maybe a bad example, but that movie has people sitting down and talking to each other and it's like here's some plot, here's some dialogue, here's just like a normal scene. I like even those scenes in this movie play out kind of chaotically with
Good point.
abstract editing, and it's like who's even talking right now, what were we talking about, does any of this even matter? It's like just an excuse to get to the next thing, which will be its own maximalist showcase of what can a camera do, what can editing do, what if the sound design was out of this. I don't know how to fully even
No, I think that you're doing a great job, because there was, even when there's like an interrogation
mm-hmm,
where a cop comes in and is asking him questions, the way that it's shot in the double, and then like having someone's half of their face on the top and then the bottom is someone else's bottom of their face, is like, yeah, you're right. There's actually no normal sort of traditional way that this is shot in any scenes.
And
You're
like,
right.
yeah, like any actual, I was trying to pay attention. I'm like, yeah, not a minute of this isn't some like, wouldn't it, it feels like everything was designed around like, wouldn't it be crazy if we did this? Like, yeah, but then it commits
Yeah.
to that. And I feel like very few movies actually can't, Possession being one of the triumphant other ones that I attribute that to. Like that movie ruined a lot of quote unquote crazy movies for me because that movie starts at
Yes.
11 and it ends at 11. It never drops
Yes,
below
and it
11.
never drops below 11.
Right.
It's
I
miraculous.
think Strange Color kind of does that too,
It's
actually.
just not as meaningful though. The reason
I
that
get
Possession is because yeah.
I get that, but I still find a lot of interesting meaning in here. And maybe it's
Yeah.
like a filmmaker connective thing, but who knows?
Well, and it could be that you don't mind well, I mean, you and I clash on this sometimes or a lot of times where if something is sort of like doesn't make any sense, if you're vibing with it, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Then again though, Frank, if you're not vibing with it, it is
Well,
loudly not
totally.
fine.
Totally.
Like Trust, for
Yeah, no,
example.
totally. That's a great example
Yeah.
where I just never caught the vibe and that's on me.
And then you can't catch it.
Right.
Like if you don't like Hal Hartley, forget it. You never will. Like if you're waiting for the movie to somehow
I still have hope. I still have hope one of them will do it for me.
I think Henry Full maybe. That would be my recommendation for you because he's even if you don't like the film, you will like Henry. Maybe not like is the right word, but he's one
Admire
of the
him as a
most intriguing
character.
characters. Oh yeah, he's so enigmatic and fascinating and just weird and dark. It's making me want to watch it.
I'm still going to try that in Amateur before I swear him off forever. So,
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear it.
um,
So
that,
yeah, The Strange Color of Your Body's Tears has a lot going on that from a just like a purely filmmaking perspective, I think.
and like I said,
More than
six
anything.
watch, I think it does make sense. But boy, howdy, I would have to like start spoiling the whole movie to like kind of explain. But I'm not joking where I did not gather what was going on the first 5 times fully. But I think it works in great various metaphors of nothing that we haven't ever discussed in these movies, but it almost is fully operating in metaphor and symbolism and trying to get at the idea, the classic Giallo ideas. And I think I texted this to you that it definitely feels like it ruined the genre for me because I saw it early in my exposure to Giallos, I'd say. And I
Gialli.
wish that Gialli, and I wish that they were all this weird and abstract. Like I usually get frustrated when they get really bogged down in their stories and they're trying to treat it like it fucking matters, but it's like it doesn't. I don't care what random reason that some person's going to monologue in the third act about why this is happening. Like, why did we do this? Just show me the crazy images that you all clearly want to do. And that's what matters. And those are my favorite ones, I think, where they stop pretending that what's happening matters, which is like the coolest part of Deep Red. I feel like that movie has a really surreal nightmare logic where it's like, what the fuck's
Yeah.
going on? And it's like, who cares? Look at David Hemmings. Is that his name? Look at him wander around.
Yeah, that's actually one of the ones that makes the most sense and ends up making the most sense.
I guess.
That was another reason why I liked The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward.
No, I
With
didn't
an
even know
H.
that one.
That one. Well, okay. Well, that one, the way that it ends, I loved the reveal part, and that's tricky with those movies.
Totally.
Whether or not, and it's not about. I have given up the thing about it making sense. It's not that you want it to make sense. Logically, you just want it to make thematic sense, or you want it to make sense within itself. So you kind of have to learn the language a bit and then be able to receive it for what it is instead of trying to desperately make it fit your preference.
Totally.
As far as understanding is concerned.
How do you feel like Strange Color succeeded in that regard?
The Strange Color to me is way more of a dream, a nightmare dream scenario, like Mulholland Drive.
Well, that's definitely where the Inland Empire-ness came for me. Where
Right.
it's like, right, we're pure nightmare fuel, and it's how this movie makes me feel.
This is way more of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Then that.
do want to
Yeah.
say too, I don't know if I did fully, like, it definitely has a vignette structure, and like an
Mm-hmm.
important two characters aren't introduced until like an hour into the movie. So like that's what I mean by like you can't go in expecting an A to B movie even when it starts to pretend like it might be. Like you really just have to go in and be like scene to scene. You have to
Yeah.
try to be ready to bob around or else you're going to have a really bad time. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
So I love it. It's a hard movie to describe because it is all in the sensory experience genuinely. Like it's for sure intended to be how does this make you feel? You'll never hear
Yes.
more leather creaking, cracking, and you'll never hear more knives against every surface imaginable.
Yes.
It's a great time. It's sexy and it's horrifying. It's
Two words that Frank loves when they go together. Okay, so
well
with that, no, we're ending there, Frank.
okay.
With that, that is my hidden gems wrap up. Congratulations, Frank, for sneaking yourself in.
Oh,
Um,
can I actually say one
oh,
thing?
I
One
knew it.
thing that we discussed
Better
me
be quick.
saying, and I meant to say it way earlier. My
Go
real
ahead.
pick 100% for the series would have been Anguish, 1987, Biggest Luna movie, but you actually cannot talk about a single detail about the movie because that is another where it's like you just have to enjoy the ride. And nothing I can
No,
say,
but that one is truly you need to go in cold. Like
yes.
I would be you will ruin your own
So
experience
I just
if
wanted to
you
at
watch
least
Anguish and
say it.
don't go in cold.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
And
Everyone should see it.
watching it this
But
week too, I was like, weirdly, decent amount of similarities with Strange Color. Like some visual stuff is even like there's a lot of spiral stuff, and I was like, this is
oh
fun.
yeah,
Uh,
that's the hypnosis. Anyway, let's not talk about it at
so
all.
just watch Anguish. That's my actual number
Yes.
one hidden gem pick. LOL. But we're not going to talk
And that
about it.
and that one I blind bought for my Halloween my October horror month marathon, and Anguish was actually my favorite. Besides Hellraiser.
Well, that's fine because you're a
Yeah.
lunatic.
I love Hellraiser. That
Hellraiser
he's
and
a
Strange Color not too far apart in their thematic ideas.
oh my gosh, but Hellraiser is like speaks.
Pleasure. That's all I can.
Okay, so
I
now
haven't seen Hellraiser in so long. That's my impression of what I remember that movie being.
so comfort movies,
Jesus
Frank.
wept. Okay,
Oh yeah,
I'm
you have
done.
to quote that one. Um
Comfort movies,
so
the opposite
comfort
of Strange
movies,
Color.
the opposite, well, not really the opposite of hidden gems, but so the new series is focusing on comfort food films, comfort movies, movies that remind you of why life is worth living when you are sad.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of Frank, you said this earlier today, where it's these movies sort of don't even feel like movies because they feel like they're a part of you
Mm-hmm.
and you know them so well. It's almost like a friend,
Yeah,
like how you describe a relationship with a human person. So,
yeah,
Frank's first one is Fantastic Mr. Fox, directed by Wes Anderson, and 2009.
yeah.
This one I did not see in the theater, um, but I think whatever came after this is when I started seeing Anderson in the theater.
I did. I think
Because
this was the first one I saw in the theater.
is it okay?
Wes Anderson was weirdly like a common meeting point of my family's taste, and we were all
Hmm.
pretty into The Life Aquatic randomly, which in
I
retrospect
love Life
I
Aquatic.
love it too, but it's his meanest movie by like a mile. It is like the most dark spirited of all his movies. Not that he can't get a little mean, but like Life
Hmm.
Aquatic, like Steve Zissou is like such an asshole and such a
Yeah,
bitter
he's a jerk.
human. Like
I love him though.
that's why I love the movie. I'm like, you can watch this as like a pretty serious like character drama as much as it's like a
Hmm.
Wes Anderson comedy. Like I don't know. Anyway, so I definitely went and saw. Wait, did I see Darjeeling in theaters? I might have saw Darjeeling in theaters too, actually. So hold
I
on.
did not.
I definitely saw. Yeah, wait, I think I saw both around Thanksgiving weekend. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember. Anyway, if it wasn't the first, it was the second, and I definitely love seeing it in the theater.
Yeah, well, and I just saw Asteroid City, and then I thought of French Dispatch, Grand Budapest. I know I've seen at least probably his last 4 or 5 in the
Isle
theater,
of
but
Dogs.
Isle of Dogs I saw in the theater. Mhm.
See, I didn't.
Um, oh,
After Grand Budapest, it bummed me out a little bit. I liked that movie quite a lot, but I didn't love it. And so I kind of like checked out on Anderson, but I checked back in and I loved the French Dispatch, and I did go see Asteroid City and thought it was pretty great.
oh my
Whatever,
god.
Amy.
You know what? This is actually it would be interesting to do a series where you like there's certain directors where you can't just mention a movie by them. You end up talking about their entire filmography. And Wes Anderson is that way.
It's because he's
Where
so particular, right?
but we just started ranking. Like you just automatically that's what was happening today on my thread where we were just talking about Rushmore and Moonrise Kingdom. You just have to sort of
Love both.
mention.
I love
well.
Moonrise a lot, actually.
Nothing is better than Max to me.
Max Fisher's your guy.
Oh yeah, come on.
That one is one that I always love, but that one always feels too long to me. Like ever since I first saw it, I'm like I get a little exasperated by the end, and it's like 90 freaking minutes.
There's something about the third act that feels like it's just going on too long.
Just a little bit.
It's still like number 1 just because of Max as a character.
Yeah,
he is my favorite.
He is fantastic.
Yeah.
No,
but you really love Ash though.
Yes.
Talk about Ash.
I mean,
Frank.
Ash is definitely my favorite character in the movie, and Fantastic Mr. Fox is definitely my favorite Wes Anderson movie. I don't know if he's my favorite Wes Anderson character. Royal Tenenbaum's a pretty special guy. Like I love Gene Hackman in that fucking movie. Let's go shag ass. Come on. It's everything he says is gone. But I'm gonna live. Like, I don't know. Wes Anderson's a weird one. When you were just saying that, like, he's somebody that I've always for a long time more closely associated with someone like Quentin Tarantino, where it's like I'm annoyed, but I like these movies. Like I'm annoyed that I like your movies. But as more time has passed, and I did not like Quentin's 2010 output at all. I think those are by far his 3 worst movies.
Yeah.
Wes,
you know how I feel about that too, so we won't even go there.
I know. Sorry to everyone who's wrong.
Yeah.
Wes is somebody that I've been like, I still love, and I still love his movies, and I'm liking his new output a lot. I like this new phase he's entered where he feels very elegiac, and it's like, oh, you're freaking out about dying now for real, and
you're this
is interesting, and you're slowing down a bit. But like, I think I've learned to stop thinking about him this way, and I think he's actually just one of my genuine favorites. I mean, and it's like you said, he's so specific. Like you can't just mention one movie. Like, and they're all so interconnected and intertwined, and him through and through that, like, yeah, what appeals to you as an individual somehow does say something about you, whether you mean it to or not. It's like a weird thing. It's like, yeah, why shouldn't we all love all of them equally or dislike them all equally because they're so close to one another? And yet everybody has an opinion in the wide variance of like which ones they love and which ones they don't. It
reminds me a lot of like the Coen brothers.
Yes,
like
100%.
Coen is the same thing.
100%.
Like you can't just talk about No Country and then not talk about Fargo and not talk about Raising Arizona. And then not I mean, hi. HI. You can't. Yeah, I don't know. There's just certain filmmakers, and maybe it's really the highest compliment in a way, because you're also saying that they're all worth discussing. Christopher Nolan's another one that we've just been doing with Oppie. It is saying, well, how does this relate to Prestige? How does this relate to like the whole women conversation, which we are not going to get into in any way at all? Reminded me
forever.
Of just thinking about, well, how does he, Inception, women are just always there as an embodiment of whatever the guy is going through, and I've accepted this.
I usually can, except that is the one problem with fucking Inception, is Marion Cotillard's character is insufferable to deal with.
Oh yeah.
Like
Well,
it's so annoying every bit with
yeah,
her.
but it's like Shutter Island though.
Yeah,
Leo did a series of
yeah, that
films where he
movie's
was like,
ridiculous.
yeah, but he was always like the tortured person whose wife died. Like there was,
Spoilers.
sorry. If people haven't seen Inception by
I
now,
meant
I
more
don't
so
know what to
Shutter
tell you.
Island, but whatever.
Oh, okay. By Scorsese,
Yeah.
the Italian filmmaker. Anyway, back to Fantastic Mr.
Right.
Fox. So, you love this movie. I rewatched it last night. It was on HBO Max, which is convenient, and or I guess Max.
Yeah, it's just Max now.
Just Max, like Twitter is just X.
Ugh.
I don't I reject these things just implicitly because I can't.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic in the writing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's oddly words of affirmation-y. I kept thinking of love languages and like how in the way that they speak to one another is very
Mm-hmm.
unusual, but nice, really uh lovely.
I wonder if it's because of the animation format and it needing to be more streamlined, but it definitely feels
Mm,
like this like kickstarted his like streamlined process of like everybody is just like we're getting down to no, you know what, that's not true, because Royal Tenenbaums is a lot like that, where everybody kind of is just saying what they need to say to one another,
right.
and usually very
Mm.
direct deliveries. But I don't know, maybe because once again pairing with In the Family, I didn't do this on purpose, maybe I
Not at
did,
all.
uh but like but like people taking time to speak their feelings to one another and like pausing inside the chaos of the movie to
Mm.
like, I texted you that, yeah, it makes me cry when Mr. Fox affirms his son's whole existence, where he's like, I'm so glad we had you, or whatever. And it's one short moment, but it's so impactful, and probably because it's so direct. And yeah, I don't know, yeah, there's definitely the
It's the same as
directness of it.
when Mrs. Fox, or when she takes him aside and is like, "Can I just talk to you for a second?"
And slaps him.
and has that heart to heart. Yeah. There's a lot of that going on where their eyes will well up with tears, and then there's just this moment. But you're right, it's the pause, the pausing that really sells it. And it's the same as In the Family, where it's like, why don't we take this time in life to speak to each
Mm-hmm.
other with like our full focus.
It's too that I think, you know, and I don't know how to answer that with I realize we all should, right? But easier said
Mm,
than done for some reason. Uh, but in the movie too, there's this like thematic, like from the beginning, the whole idea is about trying to accept who you are in the world. Like
mhm.
that is what the movie about, is every character trying to just accept, yeah, their existence in this place. And like Mr. Fox, it's like the setup of the movie is because he's having a midlife crisis. Like
Yes.
literally, he's like, I used to be,
And he's a wild
he's,
animal.
but you just had to accept it. He's like, I'm just a wild animal, and Ash has to accept that he's different.
Different.
Yeah, come on, I don't know, it's the best. I
Yeah.
this is definitely the movie I've seen like second most in my life, behind the other movie we're going to speak about later. Because I used to definitely watch it falling asleep a lot, and then also when I worked at Family Video, a video store chain, I would put it on any chance I got. But best feeling in the world was we only had one copy, and people would be like standing there watching and be like, can I rent that? And I'd be like, yep, here's the
Oh,
copy.
Frank.
Like,
Here you
sad that I don't
go.
get to watch it anymore, but that's fine. I'm glad somebody's going to take it home.
I also was struck by I read your review last night of it and how much you love the ending and how perfect you feel that it
It's
is.
bliss.
It is. And your
Making something
sentiment
out
of,
of nothing too. Like,
and that just the simple happiness. Like where you were like, I don't know if I'll ever be this happy in my life. Where it's just
there's a moment of genuine bliss that they all find together in the supermarket. I don't know. I don't want
yeah.
to say well, whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah, the
Whatever.
ending
It's
is
okay.
it's what sends it over the edge in my like overwhelming joy. Actually, it starts even before then. I noticed it on this watch when the four of them are in the motorcycle and like he gives
With the
any
wolf.
before even before the wolf, them escaping
Okay.
alone. Like I was just like, yeah, this is filling me with so much joy. All these people coming together. They finally found each other and they're doing it together. And he gives them a bandit hat, and it's like we're all supposed to be here. I don't know. It's so lovely. It's so.
It's like, why cannot life not be like this? Because it's what everyone wants anyway. It's what we all want. It's what makes everybody feel the
But
best.
then you do get like the weird poignant moments too, like with the wolf, or when Mr. and Mrs. Fox, Felicity, are talking at the waterfall in the down moment. Like
Right.
there's a lot of really beautiful, or when the rat has a dramatic moment and he gets like a beautiful redemption thing. I don't know. There's a lot of weird existential poignant stuff and melancholy that's in all of Wes Anderson's stuff. Like he
Mm-hmm.
definitely makes these bright, fun, quirky movies that are pretty funny and very specific and whatever, but they all do have like a layer of darkness to them, which is why he's always been so interesting and I think enduring. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's even present here in an ostensibly a children's film. That's like I don't know how much kids would actually like this movie. Like it's so not a
Other than
children's film other
visually,
than visually.
yeah,
But
visually, I
like
would say it
the
works.
characters all act super adult and like the humor is pretty like quip based, which I don't know how much that's for children. I don't know. There's a lot of beautiful, hilarious wordplay in this movie that cracks me the fuck up every time I watch it.
That's what I remember now. Your critique of Barbie was that you were like, I don't know if this is for children. I don't know how responsible it is to be
Just because
sort of marketing that way, because since it is a death
that's why.
and
I just want to make sure
yeah,
that's clear. It's because it is so
yeah,
death focused and like
right,
very
and existential.
no, but like no, like even in this movie they kind of get there, but like it's foxes and it's rats and it's stop motion,
Mm-hmm.
so like there's some
Right.
false remove there where it's Margot Robbie just stopping the scene to be like, do you guys ever think about death? I'm just like, oh god, there are small
Oh
children in the
God.
theater, but they were up and walking around anyway. So I was like, right, kids
Oh
don't
yeah.
pay
So who
attention,
cares?
so who cares?
Yeah. Okay, so Fantastic Mr. Fox, if everybody hasn't seen that, definitely. And then I would encourage a rewatch because I saw it quite some time ago and it meant way more to me now, almost like seeing it as a different person completely than I
It's
was.
definitely one that
It's
hasn't lost a ounce of potency to me. Like I love it just as much
mhm.
every time I watch it. Still, I've only watched it 4 times since having a letterbox, so I've chilled out in my absorption of it. I'm not joking. It's probably
Uh-huh.
close to 100 that I've like seen or at
Seen it.
least listened, I suppose. Uh
Okay, so that I'm going to lead with that because I want to know do you know how many
no.
times you've
No,
seen
I don't even
Okay.
have a guess.
So Frank's number one comfort movie is Die Hard. Who I don't know if anybody's heard of Die Hard. It's a little movie
Yeah.
with Bruce
Yeah.
Willis from 1988. Um, you guys should check it out.
All right, good pod. Wrap it
And
up.
it's so funny, no, to me that knowing Frank for a couple of years
Mhm.
now, that Die Hard is so near and dear to his heart when you have such odd taste. And this is like
Rude.
the quintessential action movie that everyone
As
loves.
they
Like
should.
this isn't just like a movie that like some people like.
Yeah.
Die Hard, I would say, is like across the board.
You act like I don't love other beloved movies. I sure do. Like,
Yeah, but you love Die
yeah, I
Hard.
know.
It's not just like I know. Tell me why.
Have you
Is it
seen
the
it?
age that you saw it?
Well,
Yeah, I watched it today.
listen, that is a hard thing to try to separate for sure. This was my first
Right.
favorite movie for real. This was the elevated moment of like I get movies now. I want to make movies for sure. It was that distinct like I want to make people feel like I feel right now. I can't
Mm.
did I do this on our first episode? I don't remember if I did.
Yeah, you did. I think you mentioned Die Hard on debuts, and you were like,
So
"Yeah,
apologies if
that inspired you."
repeating whatever, but I still can't remember the full scenario. Like I feel like I was home alone, but that doesn't make sense. So I'm sure somebody was like sleeping
Mm.
upstairs or something because I was 8. And all I remember is literally jumping from like couch to couch, like just like running around the living room being like, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. Like this is it. I'm so hyped. I had seen, funny enough too, the third Die Hard before this one with Vengeance. Like
Mm.
watched it on HBO with my grandpa, and he's like, "It doesn't matter. Just there was a building."
We can watch them out of order.
Yeah, and I was like,
There's
I
explosions.
loved it so much. I loved Bruce Willis. I don't know why. What started the love? It might have been, just spilled some coffee. It's fine. It might have been Die Hard. With Vengeance.
What do you love about because you said it's really because you love John, right? You love the central
I
character.
I do
Why?
love John
What is
McClane. I
this?
mean, it's been. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the reason I think everybody does. It's the fascinating thing where it's like he is just some guy. Like, sure, Bruce Willis is a handsome guy and he's like funny and charming, but he's pretty much just a normal dude. And like that alone does so much because it's like, oh, he could die. It creates that feeling of like, well, he's not a fucking superhero. Where like you can't imagine any movie where Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't dominate and make it through without it being his own choice, which is like a distinction when he's, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. He's like the perfect counterpoint to those types of typical action star, and
Mm.
I do like the vulnerability that's there. Like they take, I mean, okay, this is why I still love the movie as an adult. There's that empirical, like I can never remove what this movie did for me. Like would I be here
Originally.
now without it? Maybe
Right.
yes, with a different movie, who knows, but it was Die Hard. So
Right.
it just is. But it's that it takes the time to really build a character, and it like
Mm.
takes those moments in the beginning with him and Argyle where you start to get a sense of him and his life and how he feels about it. And then the scenes with him and Holly and them like not having a nice, happy relationship. Like they are in struggle when the movie is happening. So like there's these very human elements that they don't forego because they want to make a cool action movie. Like it almost feels
Right.
like the action is like it, I know it is in the plot, but it feels like the action is circumstantial more so than the focus. It's just like, right, we're in this big building with terrorists, so like, yeah, of course there's going to be an action scene, but it really almost plays more like it's this guy's survival movie to me, which I've always really responded to and thought was fascinating.
And the
Yeah.
bad guys are
Well,
great.
of course, there's fucking that too. Yeah, that's one of those things that it's like I forget to even say because it's so taken for granted. But yeah, Alan Rickman is shining off the screen in every single moment. Hans Gruber's an all-timer.
Yeah, and
If
I
not
love
the
the whole yeah, well, I compare him to Vader.
Yeah.
With his efficacy. I love villains that are that remind me of like Six Sigma, that are very organized and very competent, and like he is not worried.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that something goes wrong and he wasn't expecting it, he's like, "Oh, we're in control, and if you think you are, like, doesn't matter. Like, change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you gonna walk out of here or be carried in a bag?"
And I do
So
love that
I respect
his
it
whole
so
bit
much.
too. Like, please, you think we're here to steal your trade secrets? I don't give a shit. Where's the money?
I don't care. Where's the money?
Kind of awesome.
He's like, I thought you were a terrorist, and he's like, I just,
what does he say?
He just wants.
Soon we'll be sitting on a beach earning our 20%. Like, come on. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, let's just get it done. It's a job to do. Also, how theatrical he is too, ladies and gentlemen, and he has this little speech he starts saying. Like, who is this guy?
But the whole team, the whole thing of like them speaking in accents, just adds a nice touch. The limo driver, the cop,
Argyle,
that they bring different people in. Like I was going to tell you too, I really loved the pacing and appreciated the pacing very much this time. Where they seem to introduce new characters at the starts of new
Yeah,
acts,
totally.
like, within it. So it's not just
And I do
like,
like that
you
we end
know.
up getting it's a multi-layered story, like obviously
Right,
utilizing the buildings like structure, which is awesome, but you have the people on the ground, you have the hostages, you have the terrorists, you have
right,
John. Like there's four different layers going on at like all times, and it's juggling between them earnestly. And once
right.
again, taking those times to slow down and be like, these are human beings in these scenarios, like it just rules for me so hard. Like him in the bathroom being like, tell Holly, is like a wonderful emotional scene randomly happening in Die Hard. And like it makes me teary eyed where I'm just like, and he's like, tell her yourself. Come on, that's awesome. It's also one of the first movies that it's like a thing I'm obsessed with now, and really love when movies feel like they're about it. In high school, I want to say, because I've seen this movie, it has to be
So
over a
many
hundred
times.
times. Like actually,
Yeah.
like same deal. Watched this like every night in bed for years. Watched it, showed it to every person possible. Would just watch it on my
And then
own.
everyone loves it, so that's such a
Yeah,
surefire
of course,
win.
it's Die
But
Hard.
yes, yeah.
But just the idea of the ending and then being like, right, but like what happens the next day? Like what they're just like it's one of the
Mhm.
first movies that really struck me of like, what happens when they get home? Like, does John just go to bed? Like, what a crazy night. Like, how do you just
Uh,
like go on about your day? And it's probably because I saw three first, knowing that they're like divorced and he's hungover and he's like a prickly dick with nothing going on in his life, like total fuck up.
it's like Jack Bauer, the further it gets into 24, you just start seeing the descent of Jack Bauer and, like, what he becomes,
So
and
I
then
find that fascinating, the
yeah.
like what happens the day
Yeah.
after. And I think Die Hard's the
Mhm.
reason I've always become fascinated, where it's like this nice happy ending, but it's like they weren't having a good relationship. I don't think this just fixes it. Like, thanks for saving my life. Like, in a week, they're probably fighting about the same things again. And that's just like a
Good point.
weird thing that's always stuck with me. And I think I can only arrive at those conclusions because it cares so much about these characters and breathing them with life and like purpose and like layers of character. Like, I just think it's such a like, yeah, it's fun and entertaining and all the action scenes do rule. Like some great stunts, great pacing, great excitement, and it is really funny. But it's all the stuff in between those things that I think make it like special and like lasting.
Yeah. Well, and they have so many good personal touches too. Him continuing to talk to the cop and, the whole angle of him being mad that he's on the coast and that he's from
Oh
New
yeah.
York and doesn't wanna be in California. That whole thing is just really funny, and it continues on,
Ellis.
like, when he's in the vent and he's like, "Oh, just come to the coast," they said, "and come hang
Have a few
out," and
laughs.
yeah, so, there's just a lot of very likable. I would say it's one of the most likable movies ever
how could
made,
you
just
how
on
could you go
just on
wrong?
the surface.
It's
How can you not
it's
like it?
pure
Yeah.
popcorn entertainment, but like it's the best at being pure popcorn entertainment. And it's before we
Mm,
were so saturated in it and people trying to deliberately replicate something. I mean, this is a template for a reason. The joke of the
right.
90s action movie being Die Hard on a blank, Die Hard on a boat, Die Hard on a bus, Die Hard on a plane. Like, we'll just do Die Hard again. It's like, yeah, there's a
Yeah.
reason though, because like this movie fucking rules. Like, I don't know. I do think it's because of John McClane and Bruce Willis, like more than anything, like that. That is like the intangible special sauce. But I don't know. Yeah,
And I was gonna say, because we have to wrap up, I told Frank that we couldn't talk longer than an hour. So,
ridiculous.
but that brings us back to the first movie, which is that the central performance is really the reason to see it. Like, as much as John is the best part of Die Hard, the best part of In the
Mm.
Family is Joey.
And it
And
connects
that
to
is
Strange Color because they're both just movies about people in a building doing stuff. And
true.
it's all equally about the building as much as it's about the people in it.
It's about in very, very different ways. But yes, Frank, good job tying your own stuff together. This is how Frank's brain works if I tell him that I need a certain thing, he will whip up a list, and then you can just see the wheels turning in his mind trying to make connections
Because who
and
doesn't love a good
arrange
pairing?
camps. Yeah. Well, you certainly are you're the tops for that. So to recap, Frank, what movie should we watch?
Patrick Wang's In the Family and Alain
Mhm.
Quetet and Bruno Forzanez, The Strange Color of Your Body's Tears. That one only if you really like horror. And In the Family if you're okay crying like an idiot.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Fant-
Like us.
Fantastic Mr. Fox, Wes Anderson's movie. That's if you like joy. And then John
And you have
McTiernan's
a
Die
soul.
Hard.
And John
And
McTiernan's
that's
Die
if you
Hard.
just want to have a good time at the movies.
Frank, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you at the movies.